Founded in 1929, the Jewish Agency predated the modern state of Israel by 19 years. Some say it's an organization created by God, using men to fulfill His purposes. Today, one of the main missions of the Jewish Agency is still to bring the Jewish people back to the land. And seeing Jewish people return is like watching Bible prophecy unfold. Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel all speak of the Jewish return to the land. Jewish Agency Chairman Natan Sharansky told new immigrants they had fulfilled the dream of generations.
Only think for a moment, each of you, about your fathers, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers, all those generations of your families, of Jews who were dreaming and praying next year in Jerusalem. And you did it.
The Jewish Agency's mission? Inspire Jews worldwide to connect with their people, heritage, and homeland, and empower them to build a Jewish future and strong Israel. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. Well, Alan Hoffman is the Director General of the Jewish Agency, and it's a pleasure to welcome him today to the 700 Club. Alan, good to see you. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure to be here, Pat.
Pleasure.
And I send you regards from Natan Sharansky.
He's a great man and a dear friend. I'm so glad. Let me ask you, the agency, established the State of Israel and were instrumental in bringing these people in. Why do people still want to go to Israel?
Well, as you know, the biblical prophecy is that the Lord will bring the Jewish people together from all four corners of the world. Ezekiel, Jeremiah, right throughout the Bible. And when the State of Israel was created, all the way back there, we're about to celebrate 70 years next week. When the State of Israel was created, there were less than 600,000 Jews living in Palestine at that time. Since that time, we have brought from all over the world over 4 million Jews to live in Israel. And many of the greatest achievements of Israel that we know in technology and in defense, the motor behind that have been the people who have come from the countries from which they have come to live in Israel.
Well, do they get a chance to visit Israel in advance, or they come sight unseen?
So some do. There are new programs like Birthright, which we're a partner in which young Jews do have an opportunity to come to Israel. But that's still a small minority of the immigrants. Most of the immigrants who we have brought in the last 70 years have been refugees. 1 million Jews who came from the former Soviet Union after the Iron Curtain came down in the last 25 years, or the Jews of Morocco in the 1960s, or the Jews of Tunis. Many of the Jews of Iraq, 120,000 Jews in the 1950s were expelled by their countries once there was a Jewish state. And the State of Israel has absorbed them.
Well, that's quite an expense, too, isn't it? I mean, the people, but they're delighted to take on that burden, and that is a burden to resettle their compatriots.
This has been an expense which we, acting on behalf of World Jewry, have helped make possible. So in the initial years of the state, when there wasn't a budget and Israel was fighting a war on 5 different fronts, it was World Jewry that made it possible to actually bring these Jews, get them out sometimes by secret ways from the countries in which they're living, and bring them to Israel. But imagine that in the first 5 years of Israel, we doubled the population of Jews within the first 5 years while still at war. It would be something akin to the United States having over 300 million immigrants over the next 5 years.
Be unbelievable, unbelievable. I remember a meeting with one of your prime ministers, and he was telling me of an occasion where Ben Gurion was meeting with Charles de Gaulle, And de Gaulle said, well, Mr. Prime Minister, what do you want? You want some more territory? You want some more money? You want some arms? And he said, I want more Jews. and he said, de Gaulle said, you mean that's what you want is more Jews? And they said, yes. But that's what the country needed.
And as you know, Pat, I think, I'm not sure all the viewers know, that the very first law that's on the books of the Knesset of Israel is what we call the law of return, which says any Jew, the moment they put their foot in the state of Israel, has the right to become a citizen. So that was Ben-Gurion's vision. He said, without 5 million Jews, we will not be a viable state. We've passed that number many years ago.
Well, what about the conflict that's going on right now? The nations of the earth seem to be coming against Israel. Are you able to resist that? It looks like the Jewish state has established military supremacy in the Middle East and technological supremacy. These wonderful companies are making all kinds of advances in technology.
I think that Israel has, also with the help of the United States over all of these years, the United States has been Israel's most steadfast ally, including most recently the decision to move the embassy to Jerusalem. I live in Jerusalem, and next week will be the 70th anniversary of Israel. And we welcome the fact that the United States is transferring its embassy. And Israel has kept this technological edge. But I think that you are right, which is that after 1967, after that magnificent victory of 1967, there has been a turn in which the nations of the world have, in many cases, chosen to take a very hostile perspective on the right of the State of Israel to self-determination and to have its own state, and ignores the fact that we are 8 million people living in a sea of people who are committed to our destruction and to throwing us into the sea. And so I think it's not only military and technological, there's a very big moral issue here as well.
I'm just thinking about the United Nations. It seems like it's been nothing but a sounding board against Israel. And what are you recommending should be done with the UN? Do you have any initiative on that?
We're very happy with the current United States ambassador to the United Nations, and I think that her position on the state of Israel and her taking such a clear and hard line is seen by most Israelis as a welcome change.
What about this uprising in Gaza? Hamas is moving across, and there's been some, I don't know what they're trying to do. Are they trying to break the boundaries and invade Israel? What is it those people are going for? Do you know?
There are a couple of million people in Gaza, as you know, who are living in conditions that you nor I would not like to see anybody living in. And I think our hearts go out to the people living in Gaza. But in many ways, I think they're the victim of their leadership. And I think that the fact that there is such an opportunity when Prime Minister Ariel Sharon decided to withdraw from the Jewish settlements around the Gaza area, I think that there was an idealistic idea that maybe this would set in motion a process of some kind of reconciliation and cooperation with Gaza. But unfortunately, the Hamas have taken over there, and instead of cooperating with Israel on agriculture and drip agriculture and using our technology and our medical services, we find ourselves having rockets rained on our kibbutzim
Yeah.
that are as far from the border as this audience is right here in this room.
And so there's really nothing Israel can do except defend itself against those rocket attacks. Is that it? You have to.
I think Israel needs, on the one hand, to defend itself. And I think that first it was rockets, and when the rockets didn't work, they dug tunnels. And that created a war, and I think it took Israel a year or two to create the kind of borders that made it impossible now to dig tunnels and to get to Israel through the tunnels. And I think each time we have to deal with whatever is being thrown up against us, while at the same time think about how we can reach out to the man in the street in Gaza who I think wants a better life.
Of course. Well, I appreciate so much you being here, and I wish you the very best. And, the Jewish Agency, and we're great friends of Israel, as I'm sure you know, and we're just delighted to have you with us.
I think it's so wonderful that you have had this program for so many years, and Israel has always been on your personal agenda, on the agenda of this program. And as we celebrate the 70th anniversary of Israel next week, and we think about the fact that the Jewish Agency has been the instrument to bring 4 million Jews to Israel, and we continue to do this day in and day out. And that's part of the story of fulfilling the biblical prophecy.
That's right. Well, we see it before our eyes, and we're thrilled that you're part of it. So God bless you, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me here.